Hi, I'm Blane Harvey,
And I'm Hannah Chestnutt.
and we're with the Department of Integrated Studies and Education at McGill University in Montreal, Canada. Today we'll be talking about transdisciplinary collaboration on sustainability challenges and looking at new approaches for higher education institutions, looking at a case study from here at McGill. So, why transdisciplinary collaboration in higher education, particularly for sustainability challenges? Well, the literature and research increasingly tell us that transdisciplinary collaboration and knowledge co-production are keys to effectively addressing sustainability challenges like climate change due to their ability to span disciplinary boundaries as well as boundaries between the university and the wider community. However, what we see is a continued failure of academic institutions to create the enabling conditions that are needed for collective action using these kinds of approaches. This can be related to the continued use of individual-based reward systems within academia, competing disciplinary norms, for instance, between the social and the natural sciences that make it hard to collaborate across those boundaries, limited funding opportunities for transdisciplinary styles of research, and incentives that prioritize academic outputs and impacts at the expense of wider community or social impacts. All of this has led scholars such as Irwin et al. To call for new mechanisms, policies, and tools that specifically foster convergence in transdisciplinary sustainability research in order to bridge the barriers that currently limit the effectiveness of scholars in academic institutions. And what we'll be looking at today is an example of that from here at McGill. So, turning for a moment to the existing knowledge that we have on transdisciplinary learning spaces or transdisciplinary collaboration spaces, we are starting to see some factors that are key to effective spaces, such as their design, how incentives and learning and participation are critical to it, relational features like trust, respect, and leadership, as well as some systemic features such as attention to power asymmetries, institutional values, cultures, and the types of legal and governance arrangements that really shape these settings. The case we'll be looking at for this presentation is the McGill Sustainability Systems Initiative. This is an initiative that was set up a few years ago to support McGill researchers from sciences and humanities to work together to develop advances in sustainability research that emphasize engagement with stakeholders that include industry, government, NGOs, and civil society. So we see the transdisciplinary intentions and nature of this initiative. It was funded through a central allocation of about $10 million Canadian, with oversight from the faculties of Arts, Engineering, and Science. MSSI has a membership on campus of about 161 members, and it's hosted by a 3-person hub that's been tasked with convening events, funding, research, and promoting sustainability research on campus and beyond it. However, the primary function of the hub is not entirely clear to everybody, whether its primary focus is convening, being a broker, or being a funding body. And we return to that question a little bit later in our analysis. To better understand how initiatives like MSSI help to promote transdisciplinary collaboration, we had 2 guiding questions. The first was asking, how does facilitated interaction within spaces like this contribute to longer-term changes in sustainability collaborations? And secondly, how does the network structure influence its expansion, the flow of resources, exchange of existing knowledge, and ideally the co-production of innovative knowledge? We explore these in the slides that follow.
To address the guiding questions Blane has just mentioned, we used a combination of complementary methods to develop a complex picture of activity-level experiences of the MSSI Hub and the experiences of participants, as well as the network-level dynamics. We studied 2 separate events, undertaking pre-event semi-structured interviews, surveys of participant experiences, and post-event interviews. We collected network data at 2 time points and used USINet and NetDraw to visualize and compile network data.
So let's look first at the first question that we'd asked around the facilitation of transdisciplinary collaboration. And we looked at 2 events to try and understand how facilitation impacted membership. The first question that we asked of participants within it, which we had 78 respondents, was whether they saw themselves as members of the network. 71, nearly 72% of respondents did see themselves as members, with 10% not being sure whether or not they were members. What was particularly interesting is when we asked the follow-on question of why they saw themselves as members in an initiative like MSSI. Perhaps unsurprisingly, we had 37.3% of respondents who saw themselves as members because they're directly engaged in designated roles, such as serving within the governance functions or receiving direct funds from the MSSI. Another large set of responses alluded to participation, whether that is participation in events that were convened by MSSI or projects that were funded through the initiative. What was perhaps surprising and important to note was that over 40% of responses were more related to the mission and the themes of the MSSI and participants' perceptions of their association with those missions and themes. An additional 2.7% of respondents spoke of basically an aspirational perspective on membership, that they hoped to, for instance, work more in this space and more in line with the mission and themes that the MSSI advances. Looking more specifically at the events themselves and the kinds of impacts that they had on membership, we asked participants 3 questions. The first was around novel interactions that they had through the events, with the view of seeing whether these events were actually convening interactions that fell outside of the norms of what people saw through their regular disciplinary collaborations. We found that 87% of respondents either agreed or strongly agreed with the view that they were having novel interactions through the events that were convened through the initiative. This provides us some insight on the potential for network expansion as people are making connections that they would not normally make. Secondly, we asked about novel insights that were being generated through those interactions. So were people gaining knowledge that was not necessarily available to them in other spaces? 73% of respondents strongly agreed that they did gain novel insights through their participation. This suggests that there is strong potential within spaces like this for the kinds of transdisciplinary knowledge building that is seen as critical for challenges like climate change and sustainability. Knowledge that spans disciplinary boundaries, for instance. And perhaps most importantly, we asked participants whether they plan to follow up on any of the exchanges or insights that they gained through their participation in the event. This would be critical to the longer-term sustainability of the impacts that were being generated through these events. We found 60% of participants strongly agreed that they intended to follow up based on the connections or the knowledge gained through the event.
Individuals involved in the MSSI can be collectively defined as a social network if there is sufficient information regarding their connections, such as conversations in the form of advice giving or knowledge sharing. When we talk about a social network in this context, each person in the network is referred to as a node, and the connections between them are referred to as ties. Social network analysis can be a powerful tool to use to understand the positions of individuals, how various positions impact the network, and the flow of resources, such as the flow of knowledge. From the existing S&A literature, we expect a network that is able to foster knowledge co-production to include actors who bridge individuals or groups. These actors, called brokers, create specialized communication channels between individuals or between groups who would otherwise be disconnected. They also tend to operate across spaces or structural holes in the network. To identify the positions of brokers in the network, we calculated betweenness values, and we also mapped the network. This next slide shows the network map, or sociogram. It was constructed by asking network participants the following question: with whom have you discussed sustainability issues? Participants were coded by replacing their names with 2 letters. On the sociogram, each square represents a person. When 2 of the squares are connected with an arrow, it means at least one of these individuals reported sharing a discussion regarding sustainability. The nodes on the sociogram are sized according to betweenness values. This is a common measure used to indicate an individual's position as a broker. The largest nodes in this map are the green and the teal colored nodes that represent the MSSI Hub. They connect other nodes who would be otherwise disconnected. By brokering between several individuals, these nodes are in powerful positions to introduce innovative or non-redundant knowledge. This action has the potential to disrupt levels of cohesion, hierarchy, or trust, and to co-produce knowledge, but it also has the potential to block, restrict, or filter information to others. Another group or faculty with high betweenness are those faculty members who are cross-appointed or cross-affiliated. They are colored orange and may also be brokers who are crucial for network flow or may be functioning as gatekeepers. There are some other nodes of interest here, circled in the blue circle, that are on the periphery of our network, who appear to be only connected to the MSSI Hub. To further demonstrate the role of the MSSI Hub as brokers in this network, we can remove these nodes from the periphery. We can remove the MSSI Hub to see what effect it has on the network. So in this next slide, we've removed the MSSI Hub, which results in a number of the individuals who were connected in the previous slide to now be disconnected from the network. We could remove an additional 6% of the key brokers to reveal a further impact. Here we see the network after the additional 6% of the key brokers have been removed, and now we see the majority of the network disconnected and represented by isolates listed on the left-hand side. But there are some remaining nodes, and many of the remaining nodes are orange-colored nodes that represent the cross-appointed or cross-affiliated faculty members.
So what does all of this tell us about the importance or the role of initiatives like MSSI in convening transdisciplinary collaborations? Well, in our responses, we first learned some important insights on building and sustaining membership in transdisciplinary collaboration. One of them is that membership is driven by much more than formal and funded roles. One of our assumptions at the beginning was, one of the assumptions that governed MSSI at the beginning was that receiving funding was going to be one of the critical factors that determined membership. But in fact, what we found is that participation in events, and a broader sense of connection to the network's purpose accounted for over 50% of the reasons cited. As such, this suggests that communicating a values statement may be as important as communicating opportunities for receiving funding in initiatives around sustainability. Secondly, we see the importance of engaging with isolates. As shown through the social network analysis, a number of people are weakly connected to the network. Many of them we assumed would be students, but in fact are faculty members who perhaps don't have opportunities to engage in dialogue around sustainability on a regular basis. Many of them may buy into the values and purpose of sustainability initiatives, but lack formal connections, and this represents both a challenge and an opportunity for initiatives such as these.
Two key players emerged in our network analysis, the MSSI Hub and the cross-appointed or cross-affiliated faculty. These two groups have high centrality measured by both betweenness and eigenvalues, suggesting that not only are their connections more numerous than others, their connections are also crucial for the flow of non-redundant knowledge throughout the network. Their positions as brokers are essential for establishing novel connections and ensuring the robustness of the network. This brokering role is essential not only for innovation and knowledge co-production and for facilitating, also for facilitating the kinds of brokering that sustainability challenges are seen to demand. Yet currently it appears that the skill sets needed to sustain these functions remain poorly integrated and undervalued.
So where does this study go next? We're still undertaking data collection and analysis, but in our view, the study is already starting to yield insights that will be of interest to higher education institutions, and particularly researchers and administrators who are promoting action on sustainability challenges. We'll be undertaking a further round of data collection and analysis this month, conducting interviews with key network nodes, isolates, and brokers to better understand the why behind many of the issues that we're seeing emerge, and undertaking a sense-making workshop with members of the MSSI Hub to test some of the emerging hypotheses and write up our results. With that, we thank you, and we encourage you to have a look at the link indicated here if you want more information. Thank you.